Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Frustration Friday. Let's dive right in. This mama writes, what do you do when kids are upset that they can't do something? We can't do the fair again tonight. I don't have time to go to the kids' museum. Your turn to pick TV is over now. It's mommy's daddy turn, etc. I have tried the you wish statements and get confirmation on those feelings and let them know when they can do those things, but they still yell, scream, kick. So this comment is coming from a mom that's starting to use or has been using language of listening for a little while, and so she knows some of the some of the things that we recommend when a child can't have something they want. We can turn it into a you wish statement where we even exaggerate the thing that they really want. Like if they ask for cotton candy, you'd love to have cotton candy. You'd love to have a room full of cotton candy, all the different colors, you kind of dive into that wish with them. And that often validates the child, well enough, at least their want has been validated, because validating their want validates their identity. And that's really what they're looking for. They need their identity validated. They need to be seen and understood more than they need to actually get that thing that they want. And this mom is even saying she's used the you wish statements. She's gotten confirmation that she's hitting on the emotions that the child is feeling, and yet the child is still screaming, yelling, kicking. I love this because this is so real life, and also it's just an opportunity, to keep diving deeper and to teach on something that I think is so important. Okay, so if a child is still having, a strong emotional reaction, emotions are there for a purpose. Okay, our emotions are so important, and it's fantastic that the child is having emotions. Now, the emotions can trigger us. The emotions feel uncomfortable, and if your child is coming up and kicking you, then some of the expression of those emotions could be outside of your boundaries. So I always teach that, all emotions are okay. Emotions are fantastic. We accept all emotions. We don't have to accept how all emotions are expressed. And these are two concepts that we need to break apart. We get these two things stuck together. We blame the behavior on the emotion because this is just what we've done in society for a very long time. And the emotions get a bad rap. Okay, and which means being human gets a bad rap, because having emotions is just being human, So what we want to do is we want to break those two concepts apart, that emotions are a thing in of themselves, and then the behaviors that come about as a result of the emotions and the way people express emotions, they're a separate thing, a separate entity that we can hold, in a separate space, and we can have boundaries around the way people express their emotions. So if you've hit on their emotions and their feelings, you've validated them, hint, hint, this is why validating is not enough all the time. Sometimes it's all the child needs. It's not all the time what the child needs, okay? If that emotion is coming up, there's two things that are happening. One, they need to process the disappointment. They need to adapt. Emotions are for adapting, and so they're showing up to help the child adapt to a situation they don't like. For example, when a child or anybody is crying, those tears show that person is moving themselves to acceptance, so then they can figure out how to live in a world where, whatever this disappointment has happened is going to, how they're going to survive or live or function in this new existence, this new world, their new understanding of the world. For example, an extreme example is if you lost a loved one, right? There's a lot of grief, a lot of tears that come, and those things, they acknowledge how important that person was to you. That's so important. Not saying if you don't feel like crying means that that person wasn't important, but I'm saying that those tears that's one of the things that they do show. And also, it's the brain changing and adapting to a new reality. That's what's happening. And so sometimes our kids just need to process and adapt to a new reality. And again, the emotions that come up, they don't mean anything about you. They don't mean anything about you. They mean everything about the child and the fact that they're adapting. So you can step back and not feel like you're doing something wrong or blame yourself or anything like that. Emotions just are. They just got to be there, and it's great when they show up. It's actually great when they show up, even if it feels like they complicate things. Okay, so and then that idea of, yes, your child's processing and adapting, and you can hold boundaries around the way that they are expressing. So example, if they're kicking you, that's gonna, I'm sure, not gonna be okay with you. That's gonna be, outside of your boundaries. And so that's when you step in and you hold boundaries and you let the child know what they can kick, what they can do, because there's hormones that are released in their body with that reaction, with those emotions, and those hormones need to be used up, really. They need to be used up. And so what can they kick? What kind of physical movement that can they make to express these things? And this is so important because, children are learning how to function in the world. They're learning how to deal with heavy disappointments. Dealing with the disappointment of, not being able to go to the fair, for example, okay? Dealing with that disappointment and having the tools to deal with that disappointment and experiencing themselves as successful at moving that emotion through their bodies and having some self-control in that situation is a huge life skill for our children to have. It's a huge life skill for anybody to have. So when you can show them how they can move those emotions, how they can move that energy through and out of their body so it's not getting trapped in there, because that's when we really get the big blow-ups, is when the emotions get trapped, okay? So the more frequently we can help our children move through, the more they can experience success. Language of listening is all about helping our kids experience success and helping you experience success as a parent as well. At experiencing self-control in that moment. It may look like your child is very out of control, right? But how amazing is it for them to start to learn how to experience self-control and move emotions through their body and move the extra energy out of their body that's there as a result of the hormones that are being released. That is huge. And so, being able to focus on that. So again, you've done nothing wrong if your child is upset or disappointed about something, okay? Because we'll blame it on ourselves, or we'll think, there's something different we need to do. And all we really need to do is be there with them and hold our boundaries around them moving those emotions through their body. So again, what can they kick? Can you line up some stuffies in the hallway and they can just kick them 1, 2, 3 down the hall? That's something that would feel very satisfying to me, by the way, if I was upset. I kind of feel like kicking things sometimes when I'm upset, and I want to be able to have a quick, easy way to find something to kick where nobody's going to get hurt, nothing's going to get damaged, and I can move that emotion through my body. Fantastic for your kids too, because again, what happens when your child becomes an adult and they have to deal with really difficult disappointments? The little disappointments they're learning to handle right now are getting them ready for the bigger disappointments they're going to handle when they're older. And let's talk about some really extreme disappointments where, you're going to feel like screaming and yelling and kicking, right? If you lose your spouse in a car accident, how is all of that emotion going to get moved through and out of your body? It needs to be expressed, right? What are some other things? Maybe you have a really toxic boss and he was a complete jerk and blew up at you and fired you, and that's it. You've lost your job. You were treated like crap, right? There's a lot of emotion that's going to build up. And when you come home, you're going to need to probably release a lot of that stress and a lot of that emotion. What are going to be some ways that feel predictable for you, that are satisfying for you automatically, right? Because you learned when you're a kid, my body wants to kick. And it's not good to kick other people. I'm not going to kick my boss, right? You end up in jail, right? So you don't want those things happening, but you want to be able to move those things through your system in a way that, again, is socially and personally beneficial, because stuffing emotions, ignoring emotions, vilifying emotions is not personally, nor is it socially beneficial. It is neither one of those things. So again, moms, dads, you've done nothing wrong if your child is having an emotional reaction to a disappointment or a frustration. Just be there with them. And one of the best trainings that I have that can really help with this is my Summer Parenting Genius course, which teaches you how to really enter into a deeper level of validation, a nervous system level of validation for your child, so that you can get in there with them. And that really gets you in a very powerful place in order to hold your boundaries, in order to get them feeling like you're on their team, you're with them, they are seen and understood. Then they're like putty in your hands for teaching them and showing them and being with them, coaching them really through how to express these emotions, how to move this energy out through their body in a way that falls within your boundaries, in ways that are both personally and socially beneficial for them. That was number one, okay? Number one reason why kids are going to still have emotional expression, even if you've perhaps validated them on a certain level, that they could still end up screaming, kicking, whatever, okay? So it's just that idea of making the emotion right, showing them how to express those emotions within your boundaries. Then you're equipping them. They're not going to need you every time, right? You're giving them life skills that will last. Now it will take them through their teen years. It will take them into their adult years, right? Any time is the right time to start teaching your kid how to, teaching them these life skills about how to express their emotions, move them through their body, and be validated. Use their emotions as messages. That was number one. Number two, sometimes the yelling and the screaming and the kicking works. It's worked because we hold what language of listening calls door boundaries instead of wall boundaries. So a language of listening has, it has the premises, but it also has principles. And one of the principles says everything you do works. The same is true for your kids. Everything your kids do works. It works for something. So if it works sometimes when your child screams and kicks and yells for them to get what they want, then they're going to keep trying it because it's just a thing that works. So that's the other piece that we want to look at, is we want to look at how consistent are we when we're holding our boundaries, because it's so much easier on us and so much easier on our children if we get over that first hump of being really consistent every single time with our boundaries. Then they'll fall into that rhythm of that's just the way things are, and they won't keep trying the yelling and the kicking and the screaming. Okay, so that's kind of a more simplified explanation of what's going on, but it's also possibly what's going on as well. Okay, so a door boundary is when, sometimes something's okay and sometimes it's not okay. And a wall boundary, there's a wall behind me here, okay? I'm not going to try to get through this wall. If I need to get out of my house, this is not the path I'm going to take. Right? So when we have wall boundaries, they're just there, and I don't even notice the wall when I want to get out. I don't look for the wall. I don't sit at the wall and cry because the wall is there. I'm going for the door. Right? And I have door boundaries with my kids, like ice cream after supper. We don't have dessert every night. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Sometimes they have to eat everything to get dessert, sometimes they don't. That's a boundary that I'm okay with having to hold in different ways over and over again. It's not stressful for me. I feel like whatever about it, right? It's not triggering for me. Some boundaries can feel really triggering. And so those ones are the ones where you want it to be a wall. You want it to be the same answer every single time. So the child understands and it starts to become invisible to them, and they understand this is just the way things are. Mom just doesn't let me do this thing. Or when mom says no about this thing, it just means no, and there's no getting around it. There's no unlocking any doors. It's not a door, it's not a window, it's not a locked door, it's a wall, and they will get there eventually. And so that you won't have those meltdowns that are coming as a result of door boundaries. Those ones will start to fade away. And what it does is it actually allows the child to come up with a different strategy for expressing themselves or for getting what they want, right? If getting what they want works sometimes to scream and kick and yell, then that's the strategy that they have. If that strategy stops working, then they come up with a new strategy, and you can support them to help that strategy fall within your boundaries. Okay, there you have it. I hope that helps. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. As always, I'm here for the questions. If you have any questions about what I've talked about in this video about what to do when your kids are, upset and expressing emotion, and you feel like, wow, I really felt like this should have been handled. Let me know if you have any questions. And also, again, I'll just mention that course that I have. It's just a little a workshop that you can watch, and really just kind of teaches you how to connect with your child on a nervous system level, a really beautiful way that we work as human beings to get you in there with them, inside their emotions, so that you can lead and guide them through the boundaries, to help them know how to express that emotion in the future. And it doesn't take much to get them learning those new life skills for expressing their intense emotions, especially the intense ones. Expressing them in a way, again, that is both personally and socially beneficial. So that's it, mamas. I'm going to sign off. I will see you again next Friday, or I might do my video on Thursday next week. because I'm going out of town next Friday. So you may see me on Thursday instead. We'll see at some point though next week. I will do a frustration video. Okay, see you then. Bye bye.